Hey, everyone! Today I want to share with you a story full of tension, tough choices, and lifelong lessons. The saga of Lot and his daughters, one of the most impactful narratives in the Bible. This story is one of those that grabs your attention from start to finish and leaves you reflecting on life. It's impossible not to feel a mix of emotions as you go through it. From the shock of the destruction of Sodom to the complex and challenging decisions that shaped Lot and his family. So, get ready, because this time travel journey promises a lot. It all starts with Lot, Abraham's nephew, living in Sodom, a city known for its wealth but also its corruption and boundless wickedness. Alongside Abraham, Lot had always been a righteous man, trying to live a just life amidst all that chaos. But it wasn't easy. He lived surrounded by people who didn't care about morality, God's teachings, or the laws of justice. Still, Lot tried his best to maintain the integrity of his life. But things were about to change in a drastic and unexpected way. One day, while Lot was at home, two mysterious visitors arrived at his door. They weren't ordinary men. They were angels sent by God with an urgent and incredibly important mission. Lot, take your family and leave now, because God is going to destroy the city. The shock was immediate. These angels were there to warn Lot about the fate of Sodom, a city whose wickedness had already reached unsustainable levels. What was going through Lot's mind at that moment? Did he fully believe what was happening, or was he still trying to understand why such a great catastrophe was coming? Imagine the desperation and anxiety that Lot and his family must have felt in that moment. They had little time to process what was happening, and the angels practically dragged them out of the city. The anguish of having to leave everything behind, the house, the belongings, the life they knew, must have been a deep pain. The story gives a clear warning: don't look back. It was a definitive warning, a direct instruction from God. Not looking back wasn't just a simple recommendation. It was a matter of life or death. Now, imagine the tension of such a critical moment. The end was near, and they were on the run. Behind them, Sodom and Gomorrah begin to be destroyed. Fire and brimstone fall from the sky, devastating everything in its path. The cities, once symbols of luxury and sin, were now being consumed by divine justice. It was an apocalyptic scene, like something out of a disaster movie, but this was an undeniable reality, something that could not be ignored. But in the midst of their desperate flight, something tragic and definitive happens. Lot's wife, overcome by a desperate curiosity, makes a fatal mistake. She looks back, perhaps out of longing or doubt. The moment she does, something unbelievable happens. She turns into a pillar of salt. It was a direct and severe punishment for disobeying God's command. And this scene has become one of the most memorable moments in the Bible. What was going through her mind at that moment? Did she really believe that something so horrible could happen just from a simple glance back? Lot and his daughters continue their flight, now alone, without their mother, seeking refuge in the mountains. They leave everything behind, and the life they knew vanishes in the blink of an eye. But what follows, my friend, is even more surprising. They find a cave to take shelter in, trying to understand what had happened and what would become of their future. It's at this point that the story takes an unexpected turn. Lot's daughters, fearing that their family line would end, make a radical and controversial decision. They believe that without a man, without a husband, the continuity of their family line would be threatened, and their lives would lose all meaning. But instead of waiting for God's solution or divine providence, they make a decision that defies norms and moral principles. In a desperate act, they get their father drunk and in an unthinkable gesture of children by him. This act, so controversial and morally complex, resulted in the birth of Moab and Ammon, who would become the founders of two nations. Here, the story forces us to reflect. How far can we go when we feel completely cornered? What can the pressure of circumstances make us do? To what extent can desperate choices affect our morality? This decision by Lot's daughters was undoubtedly a desperate attempt to preserve their own existence and ensure a future for them and their family. But we cannot ignore the spiritual and moral impact of this choice. The story of Lot is a real whirlwind of emotions. It speaks of faith, tough choices, and the consequences of our actions. Lot, in his struggle to remain just, ends up being a very human figure, full of flaws but also with the courage to move forward. His story teaches us that even when we don't understand God's plan, we must trust. But did he trust fully? Or did he also have his doubts as he fled from a city about to be destroyed? Lot's daughters, on the other hand, make us reflect on how far we can go when we feel there's no way out. They were willing to do anything, even if it meant breaking established moral standards. This leads us to question, to what extent can our decisions be shaped by desperation? When we feel lost, what are we capable of doing? When our faith is tested, can we be tempted to take shortcuts that lead to irreparable consequences? This narrative is an invitation to think about our own lives. Do we trust in God, even in the most difficult times? Are we willing to leave the past behind and move forward, as Lot was instructed? Or are we often so attached to what we were, to what we've lost, that we look back and get lost in longing and regrets? What can we learn from the choices and mistakes of Lot and his daughters? How do we handle the crises that challenge us to make decisions that can change everything? This story also reminds us that life is full of challenges that make us question our faith, our choices, and our attitudes. Lot, who tried to be righteous, ended up suffering from the choices of others, and his daughters, who believed they had to save the family line, made a decision that, though motivated by a feeling of survival, had a profound impact on their lives and the history that followed. If you enjoyed this story and want to keep diving into amazing narratives like this one, you know what to do. Comment what you thought, share with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. There's plenty more emotional, educational, and surprising biblical stories coming your way. Let's continue exploring the past to better understand the present and the choices that shape our lives. See you next time, everyone.